welcome back to episode 2 of our 3rd season of Leap Into Business. And don't forget, our School of Business, of which this podcast is the official podcast of, is the only school of business at a public institution of higher education in the Bronx or in Westchester. And I am thrilled today to be joined by Kevin Matz, a partner at Arendt Fox Schiff LLP, and Kevin has a breadth of expertise in trust, estates, tax planning for high net worth individuals, and a whole range of other areas of expertise, but also is the current year president of the NYCPA. So I'm extra amped to have you on here today with us, Kevin.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Sean.
Absolutely.
And thank you, Provost, for having me, and welcome everyone. And I'm also a CPA, so president of the New York State Society of CPAs, balance that with everything I do in the practice of law.
Good.
But we'll talk more about that, I guess, shortly.
Yes,
Yeah,
absolutely.
absolutely. And I'd like to start, Kevin, if I may, by getting to know you a little bit better. I know you are an alum of Lehman College, a proud alum, class of 86. So congratulations on being back on campus. We were discussing earlier that you have seen how the campus has evolved. But I imagine that some of the learnings, some of the values and the experiences you had as an undergraduate here, you have taken through your entire professional life. So maybe you want to tell us a little bit about you and your background and what you learned from those years at Lehman College.
Oh, so I had such a fantastic experience at Lehman. It's all those years ago.
Yeah.
Wow. That really brings you back. But it was more than anything. It's a sense of collaboration, the sense of people in a community caring for each other. And I think those lessons, but also the goal, really the mindset of challenging ourselves. And that I think I took with me in the years to follow. My own path, sometimes you think as a student, well, I have to do this, I have to do that. It's a linear path. Well, guess what? You learn over the course of time. And as you can see from the year that you recited, more than I'd like to admit. We won't dwell on that, okay? But over the course of time, you realize that you have lots of twists and turns. And you don't necessarily end up where you think 5 years out of school or even while you're in school where you're going to where you're going to end up. Life kind of does that. Career opportunities do that. Your own interest, things that pique your interest, things that you want to pursue and feel very passionate about. But I think the cornerstone was everything that I learned here at Lehman. The wonderful professors. I remember Gary Schwartz, for example, who chaired the Lehman Mentors program. I had some dear friends. Lewis Gordon, who I actually was in a band with. He's now, I believe, a professor of philosophy at Yale University. Not a bad
place.
Not a bad gig.
And we used to perform together, talking about gigs.
Nice.
So,
Nice.
But this was a starting point.
And what was your undergraduate concentration, your major?
So I double majored
Okay.
in accounting. I got
Obviously.
my BS in accounting.
Excellent choice.
But I always loved history. So I loved
Excellent.
numbers, but I loved the literature and history. So I also got as a second major in history, which served me well going on to law school down the road.
I love it. As a matter of fact, we welcomed new students last week. It was the new student orientation, and one of the messages I wanted to convey to them is try to find disciplines in which you can either major and minor or double major that are distinct from each other, because you're going to be able to generate the hard skills on one and maybe more of the critical thinking, soft skills on the other. So I gave the example of nurses who also minor in music, for instance. And you are a perfect example. Accounting and history. What a wonderful combination.
And you know what? You might not assume that that's going to be a perfect jigsaw puzzle that all coalesces. But, that's how life is, and that's how learning is and experience is.
Yeah.
We process what we come across, and we synthesize it ourselves. You don't necessarily have to see a pathway there, but you sort of figure it out all along. But it's very important, I think, to have a breadth of knowledge, a scope of knowledge that can be interdisciplinary, that can be beyond the scope of just saying, well, I'm just going to take business courses, or I'm just going to take STEM courses. You broaden that. You include the arts, music. I love music too.
Yeah.
Pursue that as well. I'm sure we'll talk about that a little bit. And you know what? You kind of like synthesize it over time and figure out what resonates most to you. But have a taste of different aspects. And the idea of double majoring or having a major and a minor, I think that's a wonderful idea because that really, I don't want to say compels you, but leads you down the path of pursuing different things you know otherwise not been exposed to.
Yeah, fantastic.
Excellent points there, Kevin. And you know that whole breadth of knowledge is, I do think, something that can be overlooked in the current era, right? Because everyone's focused on STEM or AI or automation or some other new sort of hyper niche area. But having that breadth of knowledge to be able to have the conversations, like for law, tax planning, and trying to explain to clients highly technical topics in a manner that's able to be understood.
Yeah,
That's super important.
Absolutely. So much of it is communicating.
Yeah.
And communicating, you have to take into account, you have to meet the person that you're speaking with or communicating with in writing, and communication by emails and letters. So very, very important. Fundamental skills sometimes is not completely appreciated by the student, but you do over the course of time in a business setting. Key communication is to have effective communication, not just say something that you feel really good about saying it, and the other person is saying, well, that person's really smart, but I don't have an idea what they're saying. Or maybe sometimes they're saying, well, this is a person who has some technical knowledge but isn't able to translate it to a real-life setting, such as business, or in the case of what I do as an estate planner, people talking about, well, I'm not going to be here forever. How do I transmit my wealth in a way that could be managed effectively, succession purposes? Think in terms of that show, Succession. It kind of it relates there. But to pass it to the next generation, how can I basically describe a plan that is tax efficient? Always think about taxes, because you don't want to have X amount end up being 0.6 X amount because 40% goes to the government, which is not to say that it's not that's not necessarily a bad thing, but usually explain it to the clients, and it's like, well, if we can do things in a tax-wise, tax-efficient manner to maximize what goes to my kids and my grandkids and preserves it, which is why we love as estate planners to talk about trust and how flexible they can be, and we're talking about legal concepts which blend with accounting and business concepts, and then very important, the psychological, because you're dealing with people, we're not going to be here. We're talking about meeting our maker at some point in time. Mortality. We talk about mortality risk. It's a fancy way for saying at some point we're going to die. We're going to pass on. And what do you want to have happen as far as the rules of the game for the management of your wealth for the next generation? Are you concerned? Fancy way of saying that maybe your kids or grandkids will kind of like say, wow, I just inherited a nice amount from grandma or grandpa. Let's party. Well, there's
if you don't plan, maybe you leave more to Uncle Sam. Not that we don't like Uncle Sam, but
right.
Of course, we all like Uncle Sam.
Or moreover, what if you have someone who says, no, I'm going to preserve it, but then all of a sudden people know or come to understand that they've come into significant wealth. And they get taken advantage of. And they say, well, you know what? I have this private equity company. We could have the next Apple or Microsoft or NVIDIA. Just invest it all here. Oh, but you need to put a lot more because if you put a lot more, you'll get a lot more return. Very unwise decisions. All ties in with the notion of financial education. And we can build that into the planning that we do for our clients as lawyers, as accountants, as CPAs, as other financial professionals, but then interweaving with that the emotional and psychological aspect. That's part of what I love what I do.
So let me ask you, because as you're describing what you do, did accounting at Lehman, then went to Fordham Law, right, for law school. Accounting, taxes, or law? In terms of the profession, I know it's hard to separate one from the other. Aaron Fox, a very prestigious law firm, obviously, and what if you had to choose, which of the two is the one that is more passionate to you?
So I would say I've really melded into my own brand.
Yes.
And that's what I think.
It's a good answer.
I think what we all have to do. So I love the accounting, and it really resonates with clients because many clients come to me and say, "Oh, Kevin, you're also a CPA, so you can understand the tax concepts and explain it." Quite often, sometimes with lawyers, there is how about phobias? There's like a numerophobia sometimes with lawyers. Not always.
I thought you were going to say a lawyer phobia.
Yeah, not lawyer phobia. No, I'm a lawyer, as well as a CPA. So I love it. So, but yeah, there can be people who are afraid of numbers. It's kind of like, well, we'll let the accountants, the CPAs handle it, the financial analysts. But I think that the most effective trusted advisor in the setting who's someone who has a multidisciplinary background and are able to meld it all together and say, here we have you inherited wealth. It's reported here. We have the will. We have the revocable trust to which it poured over. It's reported here on the estate tax return, and it also reports the various assets and holdings and companies that you have that you're going to inherit. Understand certain tax attributes from this. There's a step up in basis on death. So if you don't pay estate taxes, you actually reduce estate taxes in some cases just by inheriting wealth in certain ways. If it's from an IRA, not so. So if you want to give money to charity, maybe you have the IRA or qualified retirement plan go to charity because that doesn't get the step up in basis to avoid essentially a built-in income tax if the inheritor, fancy word for saying child or grandchild or wherever it may be, sells it the next day. So I like to meld those concepts. I don't think I have one favorite. Yeah, day in, day out, I practice as a lawyer. That's what my business card says. I'm a partner at a law firm. But such an important part of my background of who I am, the foundation, is being an accountant, being a CPA, and that brings us back to everything I first come to learn here at Lehman.
Awesome.
So I'm going to drill down on
Yes, I love drilling down.
On the accounting aspect. Obviously, there's been a lot of changes in every aspect of accounting, taxes for sure. Those go back and forth quite a bit, auditing and all the rest. So for anybody who is at Lehman majoring in or thinking of majoring in accounting, what are some of those biggest opportunities and obstacles out there right now for folks who are right now trying to enter this whole world?
So that is a great, great question. And the answer to that might be different 5 years from now than it is right now.
Sure.
At this point in time. So a couple things. There is an absolute need for every business to be able to monitor its financial health. What does it have at that point in time? What does it expect to receive on a projection basis, but also looking back as to what is historically received over the course of the last year? Compare that to the prior year before that. What are the cash flows? What's the overall financial position? All these are so helpful. And what students need to realize is that they're not just learning debits and credits and T accounts. It's the starting point. It's the foundation. But we're learning to become trusted advisors. And I think that is something that's a concept that is overarching for accountants, for lawyers, especially in the fields of trust and estates and tax and family office, which I do, and also financial advisors in general. It goes beyond that. People who consider the information that they have developed the skill set to process it, work as a team collaboratively with other professionals. In most cases, I'm working with CPAs from CPA firms and financial advisors, sometimes insurance specialists too. In order to serve the client, we got to do it together. So I would say the most important thing is to have the mindset is that you're not just someone learning a particular set of master a certain set of tools and techniques. That is important. You always have to have technical excellence in what you do in order to serve, but you're serving the client ultimately as a trusted advisor. I think that is an important mindset to have.
It's always interesting to me, Provost, that every guest that has been on this podcast in every season, every episode, one of the key things they always emphasize is the importance of being able to work together with other people across different expertises. And that's really interesting to me, as we have tools like automation and AI and blockchain and crypto assets coming into the fray, that even as all that is happening, the interactions between people are still so important.
Yeah, indeed. And this wasn't planned, but I can relate so much to what you're saying. I also did economics and political science as an undergrad, and then did a JD and MBA. So I'm an attorney as well.
Wow.
So I had that combination of business and law. I didn't go the tax route, but I did see how those two things could interact very well. And I guess that's why you chose to work with high net worth individuals in their estate planning. So what my question is, how you got there, and thinking of maybe our audience, many of them are students who might be studying accounting right now and don't have a clear idea of how to get to that next level in their profession. So maybe you can tell us a little bit about that.
We have, 2 hours for this?
Yes, yep.
No, I promise.
least,
I
at
hope I
least.
won't get a tip. Okay? So, again, it isn't always linear. It isn't always step 1, step 2, step 3. So my passion when I was here at Lehman College was actually music. I took some courses. I've written maybe 300, 400 songs. I play guitar, sing a bit, was co-lead singer, and founded a band together with other Lehman College students called No Boundaries. We came together very end of my last year and started performing, including Greenwich Village, recorded an album.
Nice.
And my initial thought for the accounting was I better get good at it because this is I'm going to fund the album. And we recorded.
So it was a means to an end.
It was a means to something completely. I mean, I enjoyed it as I was doing. I was working at small CPA firms, but the focus, my goal up until about age 24, 25 was to be a professional musician / shall I say rock star.
Excellent.
And
That's awesome.
I need to bring you my albums. I ultimately recorded a few, both with the band.
Definitely.
With Lehman College graduates, including Lewis Gordon. If you're hearing this, hello, buddy. Who's, again, professor of philosophy at Yale, absolutely brilliant, or drummer, and the like. And that was my goal at the time. But the thing about that field is unlike what we're doing, where you could actually reinvent yourself at any point in time. That is a field where you kind of like age out financially at a certain point in time, which is tends to coincide with the mid-20s. And although I was pursuing that, much of what I was doing in accounting was tax focused, tax return preparation, research. We're working in tandem with lawyers, and I was saying, that would be pretty interesting to pursue. I also, again, as previously mentioned, double majored in history, and so I took the LSAT, did pretty well on it. And I figured, okay, let me continue to work, but maybe pursue school at night. So I went to Fordham Law School. What happened was, again, sometimes things lead to unexpected directions. Just when I was starting, I came down with mononucleosis. And so I had to give up my day job, but I still, although I was like sweating from continued fevers, attended Fordham, but did very well. I made Law Review. I became an editor of Law Review, ultimately. Switched to Today. And then had the experience, and again, twists and turns. So I did quite well. I had a chance to clerk in federal court for 2 different federal United States District Court judges. I was the last law clerk for Judge Cannella, Southern District of New York, U.S., and then I was the first law clerk for Judge Joanna Seibert in the Eastern District of New York. And that actually got me thinking, wow, wouldn't it be great? And you were writing opinions of the court, basically. Wouldn't it be great to become a federal judge? So that led me to say, well,
This is pivoting from rock star to federal judge.
Yeah.
I love it.
So then you're saying, it's like, well, how do I do that? What steps? Now you might be laughing along the way. It's like, realize, Kevin, you didn't have something that showed you a pathway. Right. We kind of like figure it out and improvise musical type term as we go along. So I was pursuing that, and it's like, okay, well, how do I do that? Well, I got to go to the U.S. Attorney's Office. And how do I do that? Coming out of a clerkship. I go to the largest law firm I can in their litigation department. So I actually joined for a few years And it was a great learning experience, working with top people in the field. Skadden Arps, like the largest law firm in the world, practically, one of the three or four largest, tremendous department in their litigation department. And I was there a couple of years, and it's like, well, you know what? This isn't the same. Yeah, you're reasonably well paid, but this isn't the same as the satisfaction I was deriving from working in a federal court, being impartial, trying to reach decisions as far as drafting opinions for my judge to consider, seeing published opinions appear in the federal in the various law books, and it's like, what did I really enjoy most? And granted, I've aged out of being a rock star. It's not going to happen anymore. So I had to get over that at a certain point, although I did have a second try. But
you still played, right? I imagine.
Still played, I still wrote songs, still write songs like I had today. So I figured, okay, what do I do? Well, let me see if I can pivot over to something that really combines my background. By that point, I become a CPA and also a lawyer. Let's see if I could pivot to trust in estates and tax, something in that area. So I went to McDermott, Will & Emery, now actually by virtue of merger, now McDermott, Will & Schulte, but I had a great experience there. Was able to segue over to trust and estates. This is going back to, like 2001, thereabouts. So it's quite a few years after graduating. But I had a really, really solid background because I had my CPA. I had the experience from Lehman, the BS in accounting, and also being a double major in history. I had my alum in taxation. I did that at night while I was clerking in federal court over 3 years from NYU Law School. And then I had a litigation background. Anytime there was a dispute, it's like, I'm fine with dealing with that. I can write a pretty good brief because I had some tremendous training, both from working for the federal court as a judicial law clerk, then working from some unbelievably skilled partners over at Skadden Arps. So that really brought me to a higher level. And then I just progressed from there, various firms. And then over the course of time, so I advanced. I was, I really enjoy the public speaking. Guess what? Because I wanted to be a musician and a professional musician, Madison Garden. Now we did play college radio and stuff. I think we had songs played on Lehman College Radio back in the day. Had some a song that I wrote and performed and sang hit #1 on the MP3 college charts, but I was basically financing the albums and not recouping it. So I decided to really take that energy, apply it in addition to my family and growing family into the practice of law, trust and estates and tax, and just developed and was doing a lot of writing, a lot of speaking. And then one day, and this is in 2009, I was asked by a friend of mine, Larry Lipoff, who then was the chair of the estate planning conference for the New York State Society of CPAs, which I had joined a number of years earlier. But I kind of just joined it figuring, well, that's kind of the thing I'm supposed to do. I'm a CPA, might as well join it. And but I didn't do anything with it. Amazing, given where I am right now. But I told you I needed 2 hours for this, right? Okay. And hopefully I won't get a ticket in my car. So to that, he said, Kevin, you do a lot of writing about estate planning for private equity fund managers and some of the technical tax issues that are there. Can you speak at our conference? So I said, sure, that would be wonderful. So I did that. And it was a blast. The people I met, CPAs and other professionals are there. Just had a blast talking to them. Everyone was like so intelligent, so focused, and so kind. That's one thing that I really observed. Then Larry said, Kevin, I don't get this. So you're not just a lawyer, you're also a CPA. You're a member of the New York State Society of CPAs. Are you on any of its committees? And I said, you know what, Larry, that's a good question. I've never considered that. I was very much involved with the New York City Bar, New York State Bar, and the like, getting involved in some cases writing comment letters, proposed legislation. Let me check this out. So I went to the website for New York State Society of CPAs. Yes, this is going to have interspersed a commercial for it. But
good, excellent.
I'm very passionate about it.
Excellent.
And I said, wow, it's not just estate planning, trust estate administration. A lot of what I do is international. A lot of what I do is representing very high-profile professional athletes, so there's an entertainment, arts, and sports committee. There's a private equity committee. All these committees. I join individual income tax, state and local tax, multi-state. Let me join them. So I joined them, and it actually wasn't that time consuming because they only meet once a month. Okay. Nowadays they meet they meet via Zoom. Back then it was in person in Manhattan. Now it's much more flexible in terms of the Zoom option. And then so I attend. And very important lesson for folks who are listening, students who are listening. If you're inclined to volunteer for something, or actually if you're disinclined to volunteer for something, you have to just subdue that part of the brain saying, you know, how am I going to do this? And you got to take a leap of faith to say, okay, well, we need someone to speak make a presentation, something tax related at the next committee meeting or the next 6 months. And here's a topic. Does anyone want to speak about it? So I'd say, okay, let me just suppress that portion of my brain that's saying don't do it and just raise my hand. Sort of a hitch in your shoulder. So you do that over and over again. And then all of a sudden, people say, wow, this guy's like really enthused. We need to have a next chair. And you probably said, this is probably your experience too. You say, whoever is most enthused about it and most passionate and dedicated and most importantly, shows up, but also shows up and says something, is willing to say something, they're the ones who get the opportunities. And then it just continued on from there. My own practice was as a trust and estates and tax lawyer was growing at the same time in connection with the impact that I was hopefully having by virtue of speaking engagements, chairing various committees as well on the legal side, including through New York City Bar, New York State Bar, and then also on a national level through American College of Trust and Estates Council. But on the CPA side, it was just one opportunity after another, and it's like, you know what? Let me suppress that portion of my brain that says I don't have the time and find a way, and I'll figure it out as I go along. Part of it, I think, is really figuring things out as we go along. And then over the course of time, people say, well, you know what? We have a vacancy in the board of directors. And, you know, would you be interested in filling this vacancy? It's like, sure, I had no experience whatsoever serving on boards. This was J. Michael Kirkland, wonderful mentor of mine. And not just of mine, of like everyone.
Yeah, it feels like everybody.
My goodness. J. Michael is amazing, who said, would you like to serve on the board? And, you know, a lot of us, you watch and observe, and then people ask, well, what do you think about this? What do you think about this particular allocation of resources or this particular program? It's like, well, you know what? Here are my thoughts, my 2 cents on it. You know, I may not necessarily have the background here, but here's what I think is important. And then over the course of time, because you're willing to volunteer, people want you to maybe serve as an officer. Or I then also got I was asked to join the Foundation for Accounting Education, which is a wholly owned nonprofit membership organization, the sole member of which is the New York State Society of CPAs, was ultimately asked to serve as its president, and then serves as well as secretary and treasurer and vice president of chapters for New York State Society of CPAs, and then was asked by some folks to put my hat in the ring for a president, and was fortunate enough to be selected.
So I'm starting to see a common theme.
So that is a journey that had a lot of, you know, and I don't know, is this also video or just?
Yes, it is.
It is? Okay, so folks can see how I'm doing this. There's an overall trajectory upwards, but any point in time it is up, then down, and then a sudden up, and then like leveling off and maybe going down because that's life.
But the common theme I'm seeing is not that much of it was actually planned. You didn't have a 10 or 20 or 30-year plan, but rather you took advantage of opportunities that presented to you, right? And you maximized them. Yeah. And I'm, again, going back to our student audience. If you had one recommendation for them in terms of how to seize those opportunities, what would you recommend to our students?
I would say be willing to go beyond your comfort zone. Don't limit yourself based upon what you think is possible for you right now. Because if you do that, you cut off the ability to grow. And we all, this is an innately human experience, probably shared by other species as well, but certainly humans, we're not static in what we're capable of doing right now. We can learn to grow, including in our public speaking, including in our leadership, including in our technical skills, including in being a communicator and reaching out to clients. And clients say, I want to hire that person, and work with that. And then also, it's not just clients, it's the people you collaborate with. Say you're a junior accountant, being able to say, okay, I'll try this job, and as long as you work hard, there's no way of getting around working hard, and do so with an open mind and an open heart. People in this community, especially this accounting community, applies to law too. Really, I find want to care and want to support each other, and really welcome the idea of someone who may be junior, may even be a student who's an intern, who's willing to say, you know what, I'd like to learn about this. Can I help? And so much of what I do is actually volunteer work. New York State Society of CPAs, I'm president. It's a volunteer position, but it's a lot of time.
It's a lot of activities.
But you know what? I learned so much from that you can't really necessarily put a price tag on it. I would say welcome volunteer experiences and welcome challenging yourself and having an open mind to embrace more than where you presently are.
Wise advice, and something that I've learned in my career as well. We are not necessarily capable of understanding how far can we go.
Yeah.
We kind of limit ourselves sometimes. You are capable of doing much more than you think you can. So, and I think you're a testament to precisely that.
Yeah. And after this year, I've got to figure out my next 5 years. Right?
Yeah.
Hey, we're looking for faculty members at the School of Business.
We'd be happy to have you. Yeah.
I think you're a natural. I think you are a great teacher. Well, you do it via your public speaking engagement. So
yeah, I love it, and it's something that really I think most everyone can do. I've done probably 500, if not 1,000 of them over the course of time. You just do. There was a point where I was a partner at a firm. I was supposed to spin off with my other partner. He kind of bailed on me, so you kind of like learn through hard lessons. And then I ended up starting my own firm. This is 2009. I don't know if students necessarily will recall this, but that was the time of the Great Recession.
Yes.
Not the Great Depression, but the Great Recession.
Yeah.
And it was
Tough
not
times.
the time
Not
to
super
start.
fun,
Not the time to start. But you know what? You kind of like have the belief and say, well, what do I have to do? I have to take everything I've been doing, and essentially, it sounds cliched, multiply it by a factor of 10. How can I get the word out there? And the New York State Society of CPAs was a tremendous, tremendous vehicle to be able to connect, with other professionals. Again, you're providing your time completely free, but you don't realize that by doing this to have the accounting concept, you might not be generating revenue right then and there, but you are growing your equity in your balance sheet tremendously because you develop your skills as a communicator, as a trusted advisor, as someone, you develop your network.
And you give back.
And you give back, and you actually receive more than you give back, even if you're giving for free. It's just amazing how that works. Most people don't realize that.
Yeah,
it's amazing. The differential between, you could have people who maybe have the exact same grades, exact same starting positions, first to everything's parallel, and then someone takes off over time, whereas the other person just skates by. And a lot of it is all the unpaid, to be honest, volunteer work, or the investment in oneself, learning areas. I remember I would actually, when I switched from being a litigator to being a trust and estates and tax lawyer, I would read on my own time on weekends, basically horn books, treatises on tax and estate planning, front end. And very, very close reads, not skim reads, but like detailed reads, like almost like word for word reads. And then people will say, well, how do you remember all these cases? Like, because I read it in a treatise when I realized that I needed to develop my skills in order to make myself more marketable to the colleagues I was working with, to develop a skill level they would trust to delegate work to me, And then when you end up having your own firm, you kind of like build upon that. So I've been in both very large organizations, Skadden Arps was like maybe at that time 1,500 lawyers. I've also been in small CPA firms and like. I recently crossed paths with Sal Celebello, who is a named partner in Celebello and Broder, which was my first CPA firm to join. Wonderful, wonderful man. So many great mentors along the way. Thomas O'Brien as well, but also been in large and small. I had my own firm myself, working with a couple different associate attorneys and paralegal as well, and you kind of like figure it out. I think trust your ability to figure things out, but you have to be willing to challenge yourself.
And going back to the volunteering part that you have mentioned. We at Lehman are strong believers that you learn better by doing. So it's the best way to learn is by practicing. We call it in academia experiential learning. So doing volunteer work, doing internships, doing externships, doing consulting work, all of those are opportunities. As a matter of fact, I believe, Sean, you might have been involved in this last April. We had a number of accounting students volunteering to help in the tax preparation for community members.
I
right?
did that too, the VITA program.
Yes.
When I was at
program.
Lehman, I
Yeah,
did
nice.
that.
Nice.
Yes.
Yes, and we continue doing that, which is a great opportunity for you to gain experience. I wonder if you have any other ideas, suggestions, recommendations in terms of what students could do in terms of volunteer or internship work that would allow them to gain that experience.
Oh, I got an idea that it will cost a grand total of, again, we're in video, zero. Okay. New York State Society of CPAs. Now, granted, here's the disclaimer, folks. I'm the president of the organization, unpaid position. Okay, as mentioned, but I am a staunch advocate, and Seth, Sean, you've done such a great job.
Thank you, Kevin.
As well. And
Appreciate that.
I see you as a future leader.
Thank you, Kevin. I appreciate that.
Absolutely, Sean. But students don't know, and faculty may not know, anyone can join, and you don't necessarily have to be a CPA. Students can join, and the cost to join as a student membership is nothing. Absolutely zero. And you might say, okay, but you know what? I'm going to graduate, get a job, and then it won't make sense. Well, you know what? There was an initiative 2 years ago from the board that when you graduate, first year out, it stays nothing. Okay, and then you get a chance to test it. You may say, well, what's the advantage right now? Well, I just posted something there's an exchange listserv that we have, and something that from meetings that I've had with the various CPA firm CEOs, so myself and Calvin Harris, the CEO of the New York State Society of CPAs, one of the initiatives, and I think you probably heard me say this at the inauguration or whatever it was, the annual meeting that I had back in May, is I have 52 weeks in office. Well, actually, there's a fraction because if you want, we'll put that aside. 52 weeks. I want to meet with in person as much as possible, at least 52 firms, at least one a week. We'll target start for the largest firms just because it's most member. It's not limited to that. Not just CPA firms, but also industries. So part of the meetings I've had have been with trust companies and banks, and there's much more to follow. But something that was mentioned to me by one of the CEOs of the firms I met with is, you know what? There's such an interest in exactly what you said, Sean, AI and emerging technology. And that got me thinking pretty much in the context of that meeting. How can we do something that really will serve as a lightning rod for people to get involved? So we put together, just posted this just yesterday, that would have been August 25th?
Yeah.
So that would have been August 24th, 2025 in the State Society's Exchange listserv. The establishment, right after tax season, October 15th, of an emerging technologies task force.
That's amazing.
And it's not just going to be senior people who have been practicing for 30, 40, 50 years. it's going to be open for everyone. And it's going to be an opportunity to learn together, learn about the best practices, learn about the things that actually sometimes will keep me up at night about AI. And that's the fact that you put something out there, you put something in ChatGPT, and guess what? It's now a universal database, which means theoretically it's possible for whatever you put out there to be accessed from the greater artificial intelligence that's out there, which means if you
and that's accessible to students as well, right?
Well, it is accessible. But the one thing to bear in mind, to watch out for, is make sure you don't post private information there.
Of course, yeah.
Confidential information, because it loses its confidentiality and privacy if it's put out there. But this particular task force, we're in the process of forming. I want the first meeting to be in the second half of October, after the October 15 tax deadline, is going to be open to everyone. But you got to be a member of the New York State Society of CPAs. But the good news, as I just mentioned, students are free, and faculty
at $3.99, right?
Not even $3.99.
Yeah. For the faculty.
But here's the thing. And you might say, okay, so I attend some meetings via Zoom. Well, we're also going to plan to do a component of it, not just via Zoom, but also inside New York State Society of CPA's offices in Midtown Manhattan.
Okay.
So that's an opportunity. Very easy to get to here from here at Lehman College.
Mm-hmm.
You can take
also
the 4 train?
In-person interaction.
You can have the in-person interaction. And also you get to meet other professionals, in many cases, people who are principals at firms, which means you've dramatically accelerated through your networking your ability to make connections with your potential future employer. You're not just a dry resume submitting.
So Kevin, let me ask you, because I wonder how you do it. Do you sleep? You mean one CPA firm per week, you volunteer as president of the CPAs, you are a senior partner at one of the top law firms. You read treatises on weekends. I mean, do you sleep? I mean, tell us about the stamina. How can you keep that stamina up and keep it going? And what lessons can we share with our audience?
You know what? So I do work very hard, and I work consistently. Weekends are a great opportunity to focus on, for example, some of the initiatives from New York State Society of CPAs. I have a demanding client schedule, so it's kind of hard. Today, the one exception, big block in the calendar, but kind of hard during business hours, except for when you have like a set-aside meeting, like a board meeting or a committee. It goes by the name, by the way, as communities instead of committee. But this will be a task force, which will be various communities rolled up. But I find that I make a point of getting things done by particular points in time. Quite often we'll have to-do list. One technique, although I just learned in the last couple of years, but it's been very helpful, is I will time what I do. I know the accountant's a number person. I will time what I do, and I will say, here's 25 minutes on a timer. I have to dedicate myself to this one task, which I've been procrastinating on. Kevin, get over it. You got to get it done. And then after 25 minutes, when the timer goes, I can continue or choose not to do it. I'll check my emails then. But it actually frees me up from distractions. And I find that
the Pomodoro technique, is that what you use?
That's blocking, time blocking. Now, granted, I was doing stuff before then, but I think that once I knew that I'd be into this position, I said, okay, I already have a busy schedule. I do a lot of writing, a lot of speaking, a lot of stuff in my firm. I'm now adding something on top of that. I've got to figure out a way to compress it all. So I find that to be a very helpful technique, the time blocking.
Yes.
But recognizing that much of that time is weekends, or after my family goes to sleep. I quite often do stuff or get up early in the morning or whenever there's downtime. I find that to be very, very helpful as a technique.
Yeah, there is a misconception that multitasking is good. Time blocking, I think it's much more effective. You can focus, you can concentrate.
It's so much more done.
Yeah, absolutely.
I find if I try to multitask, I get too distracted, and the quality of whatever I do is not the same. Yeah. It suffers.
You also hinted at something I typically share with my kids, which is a phrase coined by Mark Twain. And he said, eat the frog first, thing in the morning.
Oh.
Meaning do the tough thing, that thing you don't want to do it early on. And then your reward is in the rest of the day. You feel accomplished and you'll do the things that you enjoy more.
So I've heard Brian Tracy say that too, but I guess he probably adopted
Got
it
it
from
from Mark
Samuel
Twain.
Clemens. aka Mark Twain. That's where he got that. That makes a lot of sense. Sometimes you got to just say, okay, what am I trying to stay away from because maybe it's a little bit boring or it's challenging. I can't figure out how to do it. And you say, I'm going to block some time and I'm just going to plow through and see where I am when my timer goes off. And usually when the timer goes off, it's like, okay, I've gone through the initial hardest hurdle. And usually I find it's not nearly as difficult, but you have to get over, it's the inertia element. You have to get over the initial fear of the challenge that's presented or the sense that it's too mundane, it's boring. You just got to plow through. And I find that to be very helpful. If I try to do it in tandem with everything else, it's not going to work. Or at least not
Kevin,
work as well.
You've been way generous with your time, and we really appreciate your thoughts, your recommendations. Any final words of wisdom you would like to share with our audience?
So Provost and Seth, I just say thank you for having me here. Thank you to the folks here who are helping with the recording and the video. But yeah, you know what? We all were in the same position that you were when in your Lehman journey, or if you're elsewhere as a student. And there's a lot of uncertainty. But that's okay. Understand we all go through that. We have to be willing to challenge ourselves to really stretch beyond our comfort zone. And sometimes people say, well, you know what, but I might fail. Guess what? We all fail, and that's how you learn at an accelerated basis. If you were to say, how do I get from here to there, notwithstanding there's all these many ups and downs along the way, and it's not a straight line. A lot of it is trying things and not being successful. Put the word out there, failing the first time. Sometimes even the second. And but you figure it out as you go along, and you get to the higher level. You get to the higher level by trying things that you didn't think that you could do.
Absolutely.
Well said.
Thank you.
Well
Very
said.
well said.
Yeah.
Sean, thank you for moderating. Any final words you want to share?
I don't think so. Provost, it was a pleasure being here today to co-host with you. And Kevin, it was an absolute blast having you on.
Oh,
really.
it
I mean,
was
we
awesome.
Thank you.
have
Thank
to
you
find
for-
out ways to
for-
get Kevin
for
back
being with
here
us.
more. Just add some more work onto your already busy calendar. We have to figure out how to get you back
and
here.
if you're next stage, if you want to pivot into faculty or teaching or academia, you know where to come.
That's wonderful.
Hey,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
Always
Thank
welcome
you.
here,
Thank
Kevin.
you.
Thank you again.
My pleasure.
All right, that's it for episode 2 of season 3.